Keep in mind, the United States is the only place with the First Amendment, and there's no way to just do away with that.
Right.
But there are ways to chip at it.
Yep.
So the United States also joined the Christchurch call to action to eliminate terrorist and violent extremist content online in international partnership between governments and technology companies.
Yeah.
Now, if that doesn't scare you yet, let me show you Merrick Garland talking about Christchurch in his speech, and then explain to you what they are about in dictating American policy.
The technology sector is particularly important to countering terrorist abuse of internet-based communication platforms to recruit, incite, plot attacks, and foment hatred. Along with more than 50 other countries, the United States has joined the Christchurch call to action to collaborate with each other and relevant stakeholders, including tech companies, NGOs, and academics, to tackle the online aspects of this threat.
All right, and you want to know why I'm really pissed off with Republicans, and you want to, the most disappointing thing that ever happened with President Donald Trump is they didn't do anything about the big tech censorship and really a tripopoly. They didn't do it. They had the time. They held hearings. They didn't do anything. Now we're hoping for states like Florida and Texas and other states to hopefully follow suit, because now you see the other guys are in charge, and they're coming for all of it.
Yeah.
You heard him say that, tech companies, and let me read you about the Christchurch call. This is from their website. Counter the drivers. This is their mission statement, I guess, like Jerry Maguire wrote it at midnight on a laptop. It's a memo. It's a mission statement. Counter the drivers of terrorism and violent extremism by strengthening the resilience and inclusiveness of our societies to enable them to resist terrorist and violent extremist ideologies. What's the greatest among those right now? White supremacy. Who's a white supremacist? Anyone who votes for Donald Trump, including the black ones. I'm looking at you, Candace. Including through education, building media literacy to help counter distorted terrorist and violent extremist narratives and fight against inequality. So that seems vague enough.
Very vague.
Yeah.
Until you go down and you see, oh, hold on a second. Now they're carving it in. Accelerate research into and development of technical solutions to prevent the upload of and to detect and immediately remove terrorist and violent extremist content. Now, let's be clear. What's that? Is that defined as Black Lives Matter? Is that defined as burn a cop car? Is that defined as looting only $949 from Walgreens? Is that defined as shooting David Dorn? We just need, no, of course not. Listen to the New Zealand Prime Minister, I don't know how to say it, Jacinda, I don't know how they say it.
Peter Jackson.
Yeah. Explaining the Christchurch call back in 2019. Then we'll come back to the States.
I'm on my way to a gathering of world leaders and tech companies and civil society in Paris to promote something called the Christchurch. What happened in Christchurch was unique in one particular way. This was a terrorist act that was designed to go viral. And we're left, therefore, with, I think, a sense of responsibility, a duty of care, to try and, yes, prevent terrorist attacks like this ever happening on our soil again, but to also try and prevent that sharing of terrorist content, of extreme violent content online. So that's what the Christchurch call is all about. Now, we as a government, we could have simply sat back and within New Zealand formulated our own regulatory response. But social media companies, these platforms, they're global. And so the response needs to be global.
And that is what is so terrifying. They're global, and guess what? They're beholden to other global entities, be them governments or be them partnerships like the Christchurch Call to Action Conference, whatever the thing is called, if I get it right.
The document.
Where none of them have the First Amendment. None of them have the First Amendment. Right. I come from Canada. We actually were about to have a pastor on he's currently in jail for hosting an outdoor service after some of the restrictions were lifted, but you still couldn't have a service outside.
Right.
People understand, and you'll get people in New Zealand, in Australia, by the way, it was still funnier than Annette, who then say...
Oh, yeah. And she hates tourists for some reason.
Yeah, apparently.
Tourists.
Who then say that, well, I don't feel like my rights are infringed. You hear that in Canada. You never do until you need them.
Yep. Exactly.
You never feel like your rights are infringed until you try to worship, until you try to say something that's unpopular. The First Amendment doesn't exist for the speech that we all agree is permissible. It exists specifically for offensive speech. And let me be really clear here. people say, well, how do you set up boundaries? Right, that's the big psychological term nowadays. The law, call to actual actions of violence are illegal. Threats of violence are illegal. We already have those laws. There is no reason to expand it unless the goal is to control speech, which, by the way, right after adopting the Christchurch call, New Zealand, they banned the website 8chan. Wow. Sorry, the service provider.
Yeah, the service provider for it. Well, they also, if you read that document really early on, they acknowledge that this is going to look like a grab at freedom of expression and freedom of speech around the world. And they're like, no, this is totally not. We understand that you have to be able to do that. And then they define this hate speech thing, right? This word that has no definition. Right. They define it so loosely. It is whatever they say it is. And by the way, I'm not going to go into any details on this, so this is not dangerous territory. Just do a Google search on New Zealand COVID lockdowns. Just look at what New Zealand has done in this last year and a half, and then tell me you want them leading the world's response.
Well, what do you mean? People have to do their own work, Danny Zuko? Huh?
That's because we can't.
Isn't that your job here? Making them go somewhere else, do their own work.
All right, maybe. Look
what they do? What they do there in New Zealand? Huh?
Sheep.
Ah, well, listen, it's tradition. Don't knock it till you tried it.
I said I didn't say anything about the sheep. They raised them.
In a white country.
Lanolin. Very soft.
Why?
Self-deprecation.
Is self-humiliation. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. It's called humor. Well, I don't like it. Well, then get off the stage.
Well, you're not funny.
Well, it's your opinion. No, it's everyone's opinion, not named the New York Times.
Right.
So this is also important to know who else has signed on to this Christchurch call.
Yeah.
Brookings Institution, who, of course, support suppressing speech. Let me read you from Brookings Institution. Yeah. On January 6, 2021, President Trump gave an incendiary speech to supporters, telling them to fight like hell. So right away, they start with a lie. They don't include the peacefully make your voices heard. And then what is the conclusion? What is the call to action here from Brookings? For now, it is vital for social media companies to be vigilant in stopping violent rhetoric and for law enforcement to anticipate and quickly suppress violence before it spreads. That is actual Minority Report territory.
It is. Yeah.
It is. Anticipate.
Yes, absolutely it is.
So how do you anticipate and stop violence before it spreads? What if somebody's out there just, making a case that that they like one guy over another guy in an election? Do you need to stop that person because now every one of their supporters is racist and obviously an extremist because they're a threat?
Listen, this is a good question. You have to say, okay, what is the barometer for them? What's the litmus test? Well, they already just showed their hand in that Donald Trump saying fight like hell. And we showed you guys a video where pretty much every single member of Congress, the Senate, has used that in some speech at some point, at least hundreds over the last decade. And they want you to believe that that is a call to, break through a window and not kill any officers at the Capitol.
Yeah.
And by the way, to go to the Alex Jones thing, this was also circulating this week. And you guys know, I've had Alex Jones on the show. I probably disagree with Alex Jones on more than I agree with him. And frankly, sometimes I think that he's danced on the line, and I've talked about that. But because people who always say, oh, that person went over the line when they're talking about cancel culture, until eventually that line comes for them, I've just always drawn that line that unless it's against the law, you have to permit it. They tried to spread the rumor that, Alex Jones was in direct communication with the White House, so they planned the Capitol insurrection.
Right. And paid $500,000 to do it.
Right.
One story, too.
Yeah, of course, because they're going to trust Alex Jones with that. Listen, Alex, can you keep your mouth shut? No, everyone knows that about me, President Trump. There's no possible way.
He's got the bullhorn.
Listen, if this money comes with any strings attached that I need to not tell everybody, that's going to be a problem. The frogs are gay! White Silver. But there's footage of Alex Jones saying, stop. They want you to do this. Go away from the Capitol. He was on our show and said it was one of the worst days of his life.
Yeah.
Because even if you can draw an association between the White House and Alex Jones was not there encouraging violence.
No.
But the media doesn't tell that half of the story. So for sure, they would put Alex Jones on a list to be unemployed, to be on a terrorist watch list.
Do we not have lawyers in the United States? Is there not someone who's an adult that can be specific about what these things mean? Are we just going to have laws that are so vague that they can't be enforced, or they can just be abused whenever they want?
Yes.
Can you please
they're taking notes
be
from
specific
YouTube.
with your feedback?
No, they will not be specific. Other supporters, by the way, include the Dangerous Speech Project for the Christchurch call and Life After Hate.
I'm sorry, I was just stuck on Life After Hate.
Yeah.
I didn't.
What is that even?
Doesn't mean anything.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.